Hey guys, and welcome back. So today we're going to be looking at some vintage watercolours from Winsor & Newton. The following watercolours were gifted to me by Andy, who has sent me some paint to try. So I just want to say a massive thank you to Andy for sending me these paints to try out. They're really interesting as they are no longer made. So for now, I've housed them in this little portable painter tin. This is the Bijou box or Whiskey Painter box that I got from Cornelisons. I will leave a link down below in the description bar where you can find one like it. So Andy sent me 10 colours to experiment with. I'm going to be painting these colours out on cold pressed watercolour paper. I'm going to be painting concentrated swatches of colour at the top of each square before blending it out with clear water. This will allow us to see how the paint flows and behaves in water, and will give us a good representation of really concentrated colour and what the paint will look like in a wash. So the colours that Andy sent me were transparent yellow, quinacridone gold, bright red, sepia, gamboge, brown madder, sap green, purple madder, fondigo and smoked, the 175th anniversary edition. These are all vintage watercolours, some of which were actually made all the way back in the 1970s, so well over 40 years ago. Some of the colours have since been discontinued, either due to the pigment running out of production, such as the Fondigo Violet, or some of them have just been discontinued because there are other paints available by Winsor & Newton that are quite similar, such as the bright red, which is made of cadmium red and PY65. Both these colours are available singly by Winsor & Newton, so they discontinued the bright red. Andy provided pigment information for as many of the colours as possible. Some of them he couldn't find pigment information for because it's not available online and would be available from Winsor & Newton's customer service, which I believe at the moment are kind of going through a bit of an overhaul, so the information is not currently available. I always get really excited about vintage and discontinued watercolours. It gives a glimpse into the past of what previous artists used, and as well it's good to compare them to today and see how tastes and manufacturing have changed. For example, it's really interesting to see that back then they used the natural version of gamboge, which is actually made of tree sap. I did look at this paint called gamboge in a series I did called Pigment Playtime recently. I will leave a link to that up above if you wish to go check that out. It explores the modern day new gamboge and some alternatives, as that pigment too sadly has run out. The gamboge here is made from tree sap. The sap green was kind of interesting too, because there was no pigment information available and the colour itself is not particularly close to anything that today we would call sap green. I'm over guessing that the pigment used in this has maybe been affected over time by daylight or air because it's not overly green. And some pigments don't age very well, so if this is a particularly old paint from the 70s or before, it may have been affected. The smalt colour was also kind of interesting because Winsor & Newton have recently rebrought out a smalt colour which is made of PV15, the same as the 175th anniversary version we have here. So it was interesting to see if it was any different to the modern day version. And personally, I would say the 175th anniversary version was a little bit more pigmented and maybe a tiny bit more darker than what they've made today, but it's not a huge difference. And the smalt from the 175th anniversary is still using modern day pigment. It's not using genuine smalt, which is actually glass that's been crushed and coloured with cobalt. The real version of smalt is very granular and has a much softer colour to it. Two other colours that really piqued my interest were the Fondago Violet and the Purple Madder. Both of these were made with PR88, which is a discontinued pigment. Fondago Violet is a pigment that is really and was really loved by the botanical artists, and being a botanical artist myself, I thought I would be really interested by this colour. However, after painting it out, I'm not overly fussed by it. There are other modern alternatives such as PV19 which are quite similar to this colour, so I don't feel too upset this colour was discontinued. Equally as well, the pigment is supposed to be not very light fast. So here's a closer look now at some of these colours. Some of them are still made today, such as the Transparent Yellow and the Quinacridone Gold, and they are using the same pigment formulations too. If you want further looks at these colours, I will put up scans up on my Patreon page, which I will also link down below. If you want to check that out, you can gain access to it for as little as $1. That new Gamboge is really nice, really warm and really yellowy. Quite different to what we have today. Brown Madder, I believe, is also another paint that is still available from Winsor & Newton. I think they call it something different though. And there you can see that dried sap green. It's very far from that green colour. And then we have the Purple Madder and the Fondago Violet. I don't know if Andy has his pigment information right with this one, as the tube that I found of Purple Madder says PR188 on it, so I'm not sure he's got that one right. But we'll go with it and see, because you can kind of see they're quite similar anyway. And they're really nice purples. There's nothing really wrong with them. And there on the end we have the smalt. It's really bright electric blue, really warm, and yeah, it's just got a nice granulation to it. There's nothing wrong with it. It's a really nice colour. So I want to say thank you again to Andy for sending me these colours to try out. It was a real privilege to paint with them and to see what they looked like, and I also found it really interesting. I will leave links down below to Andy's Instagram page where he posts regularly about vintage watercolours and some formulations and colour swatches. They're really interesting to look at. If If you guys enjoyed this video, please consider giving it a thumbs up, and if you haven't done so already, maybe consider checking out some of my other ones or subscribing. Thank you guys so much for watching. Take care everybody, and I will see you all again in the future. Bye bye.